Okay, can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me online? Yeah. Okay. Um, just to give you a little background, I am from Bike, Utah. I run a program called the 1,000 Miles Program. So a few years ago, back in about 2017, Governor Herbert set a goal of adding 1,000 miles of what he termed as family-friendly bike infrastructure, trails, pathways, and he contracted with, or the state contracted with Bike Utah to make sure this was happening. We've been assisting communities throughout the state to build these family-friendly facilities, and so that is why we are here today. So I've been working periodically with Bluff for maybe the past 5 years, 4 years, but recently Molly and I, what was it, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, we met and she was talking about how Bluff wanted to have an active transportation plan. And so we were talking, okay, how could we find funds or a grant to do this? And I was like, well, I actually just finished some other plans. Bike Utah could help you with this. So that's where we are. If we go to the next slide. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Cool. So the plan we're going through, these are the different phases that we've set up. So this is the Gantt chart. We've already kind of gone through the project parameter formulation stage. That's just basically what are our overall broad goals that we want to set up for this effort. We have a kind of core AT stakeholder group that we've been working with. I recognize some of you from that group here. And now we're into the partner and public engagement phase. So yesterday we met with some school children to talk about what are their interests, what would they like to see out of this whole process, what would be their priorities. One child in particular I was talking to, I said, if we had like a paved path near your house, is that something that sounds good to you? And he was like, yes, please do that. And it was just like, he was like so earnest, like he just wanted it so bad because, yeah, it's kind of made me feel a little emotional because one of the big things they were talking about, a lot of these students, they live on the surrounding reservations, and it's just not a good place to ride. There's a lot of, they said, tumbleweeds or like puncture vines, a lot of things like that. And so I think this, some of these efforts would make a huge difference for a lot of these kids. So as far as partner engagement, we have someone from the county, someone from UDOT, and a multitude of other organizations that we're going to be working with. So today, I wanted to present to you a little bit about the background of the 1,000 Miles program, what's kind of our perspective in the assistance that we give, what does it mean when we say family friendly. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we say family friendly, what we mean is as the number of vehicles and speeds of those vehicles increase, so should the intensity of infrastructure. So at the slowest speeds, when we're talking about neighborhoods, we're just talking about reinforcing those speed limits. So you're going to have cars and bikes sort of mingling together. We often call those like neighborhood byways or neighborhood bikeways. And we'll just do things like traffic calming. So that just either narrows the roadway or creates like a speed hump, which is vertical deflection, just different strategies for kind of slowing cars down. And you just use different things depending on the context and what makes sense. So as the speeds and vehicles increase, then like if we're thinking about a downtown area, we might be talking about creating like a physically protected or separated kind of buffer between bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles, because you want to create that feeling of comfort and safety and the actual comfort and safety. So some of the research on these types of facilities is that it increases safety by anywhere from about 30 to 75%. So it's not insignificant. And then at the final kind of speed would be like on your highways, maybe in a rural context, going out to some of these reservations and these communities out on the outside of Bluff. we're talking about these multi-use paths. So that's, you can imagine like a very large sort of sidewalk that people could ride bikes and walk on or jog on, different things like that. They could also use it to get from, let's say if you lived on an outlying community, you could use it to get into town or something like that. So that's the basic idea. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Okay, cool. So these are some examples of what I was talking about. This is kind of narrowing the road. I say sort of jokingly, the more you can make somebody afraid of getting their car scratched, the slower they'll drive. So, and this is like a pretty common practice as far as traffic calming goes. I live on a street that's about 23 feet wide in Provo, Utah, as parking on either side. And so it's like this single lane, but everybody drives so slow. And I purposely chose to live there because I wanted a place where my kids could play and not worry about cars flying through. So the next slide, and then this is on the other end, sir. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you bring up because the reason oftentimes it costs so much to live in cities is because they have a lot of these features, and we build basically like oftentimes suburbs, and then we build urban environments, and we don't have sort of a spectrum in between. And if we can build that spectrum, we can give people options and the freedom to choose different ways of living their lives instead of sort of being lumped into two different categories. This is on the other sort of opposite end of that infographic I showed you. This would be, this would be a multi-use path. You can see it has pretty significant separation between the highway or corridor and the person riding on their bike, and you can create even more separation. Oftentimes you will see these adjacent to rivers or different sort of natural features. So now I want to separate. Molly is going to lead the online group, and we're going to talk first about our values, and then we're going to talk about what kinds of projects would be representative of those values. And then once we've done that exercise, we'll go over to the maps and start marking it up relative to that sort of values and projects discussion. So I'll lead you guys over to the values section, and I'll talk about kind of what I mean when I say values, and then we'll go from there.
And while they're getting organized, maybe you can just give a brief explanation to the folks online.
Okay, yeah. So for the people online, when I say values, these things could be something like safety, or it could be something like comfort. Those would all be values. If you can think of other words to sort of represent what you want your transportation system, specifically active transportation, to look like in Bluff, or what are the values that your organization holds. So like UDOT might have certain values that you guys kind of prioritize. So if you're representing an organization, you might want to choose those values in addition to your own values. And then as far as the projects go, if one of your values is safety, think about, okay, what would I like to see as a project? So something like that could be like a safe crossing for students to get to school. That would be a type of project that would make sense, like specifically for this community. Okay, let's break.
For the folks online, are you able to hear me? Just give a thumbs up if that's good. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for rolling with some of these tech logistics. So the two questions that Chris were discussing. Craig, is there any way to lower the volume so I'm not distracting the other group? Thanks. Oh, now it's off. Hello, hello. Great. So I did put a link in the chat to this shared Google document. So if people can click into that link, we can do some sharing with one another, and we can also do some, if you want to put the name of your organization and then some of your values, we can do a mix of both. So this first question, what are the values of your organization? I'd love for, let's have, Jared, could you start for us? What are some values of your organization?
Sure. I mean, from UDOT's perspective, I mean, of course, safety is a huge value for us. That's one of our strategic goals, is to move towards zero. And so safety is huge. We also have competing priorities, of course, on our highways. We want good mobility for all users. We're moving towards this all users concept, and it sometimes puts us in conflict between different groups. But yeah, we're striving to have good mobility for all users moving forward. So those are a couple that I can shoot off right away. I mean, safety, getting to zero, and zero, we mean zero fatalities, crashes, and injuries. And then better mobility.
Thanks, Jared. Heidi, would you mind sharing with us some of your values, your organization's values?
Yeah, so similar to Jared's comments on mobility for all users, we have that same mantra in central planning, and trying to think about ensuring an equitable transportation system, making sure that people have access to the same opportunities that they would in other places. And I think that includes access to walking and biking facilities, and ensuring that we have safe facilities for people to recreate, to commute, and to get to destinations within their communities. So very, very similar, if not the same goals. Maybe I'm just articulating them slightly differently than Jared.
Great, thank you for sharing. We've also got Elise. Can you also remind me just of your organization so I can include it in the notes?
Yeah, I'm with Zero Fatalities and Safe Routes Utah. And so I feel like our values are very similar to both what Jared and Heidi said. Safety is a big one, and a way for students to be outside and get physical activity, and also a cleaner environment by having more resources for them to walk to school, ride their bikes to school.
And Elise, can you remind me of your organization again?
Zero Fatalities and Safe Routes Utah.
Okay, great, thank you. Great. Let's see. Carly, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing with us some of your values?
Hi, everyone. My name is Carly Lanch, and I am a recreation planner with the Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation. I think some of our key values is the idea of home as trailhead, and having opportunities for people to, get outside and move and recreate near their homes. Another big value for us is the idea of getting every kid outside. So yeah, proximity to schools, or places where a lot of neighborhoods with a lot of children that live in them is a big thing that we would advocate for. And then I think another key thing that we like to keep in mind and try to encourage communities to consider is just the accessibility and the nature of creating like gates to trailheads, or just having infrastructure that allows for maybe a recumbent bike to go through, or some adaptive equipment. So I know Bike Utah kind of works a lot in that space as well.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Carly.
Thanks.
Let's see, Mac, could you introduce yourself and some of your values as an organization?
Absolutely. So this is Mac with San Juan County. I'm county administrator here. For us, kind of the values regarding transportation and active transportation would be appropriate bike lanes for safety, as well as sidewalk and walking areas for students and tourists or just the general public. And I think that's really one of the things that we try to value is public accessibility, and that could mean different modes of transportation throughout the county as we try to get more and more active transportation, whether it's bike races, marathon running, things like that is what we're looking for. We also need to uptick our game on wayfinding signage throughout the county. As tourists come here, they look for signs, they look for the directional wayfinding, and that's one of the values that we have, as well as along our transportation corridors, making sure that proper maintenance is getting taken care of, or the fences. We do have a lot of livestock, especially in this area that we get into kind of that open range. And so having proper maintained fences, proper systems throughout the county are pretty critical for us.
Thank you, Mac.
Mm.
Let's see, who else do we have here? Jim, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. This is fun. I'm at work right now, so hopefully I don't have to run away and uncover some eggs or make a bed or something. But thanks for providing this opportunity to do this. I guess I'm representing the Bluff Historical Preservation Association and myself personally as a rail trails foot active transportation kind of guy. The things I'd throw in, of course, safety is above everything else. But I've got a couple of things here. I would like the system to provide possibilities for variable skills and experiences. I would like a spot where folks can push their skateboard or their baby stroller. And I'd like a spot where the teenagers can go out and beat up the country with their mountain bikes. Second, I would like to have connections between those two kinds of experiences. That could be crosswalks across the highway. Signage is important with that, but the differentiation between the paved sidewalk and the rustic kind of experience that I've been working on down along the San Juan River. Third, I'd like to be able to connect that transportation with the environment that we live in. I'd like folks who are obviously going slower than the 40 or 70 mile an hour speed limit that people go through Bluff. I'd like them to slow down a little bit so they can understand where they are. They can understand the sandstone cliffs that surround us, the river, the structure of the society that we live in here. And then, and I guess the last one is the same thing. I would like the trail system, not just to provide good access, but to teach history, prehistory, the naturalist abundance that we have in the river area, the desert that's to the north and the south of us, and the cultural stuff too. So I'd like some education put into that too. And then uh-oh, my eggs are boiling. I better go. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jim. So just a little more organized. So I'm wondering what kind of work you all are already doing and maybe what types of projects represent those values, and if you think they could be applied here in Bluff. And so if you don't mind, I might just call on people because that is a little bit easier. So I'll give you a second to think about that. So the question is, what type of projects represent those values? And if you want to give some background about projects you're working on that you're excited about, and maybe how you think that would translate to Bluff. So I'll just give everyone a minute to think about that question, and then I'll just start calling on people. Oh, Sarah just joined. Great. Yeah, and I see some people are in the document, and feel free to edit names, spelling errors, or clarify a point that you wanted to make. There's no issue there.
I mean, I
No
jump to the chase.
Yeah, just trying to facilitate and take notes at the same time. So please,
So,
please make edits as you'd like.
you rock.
And Sarah, thank you for joining us. And if you could, just for the group, what organization are you representing? You represent a few different things here in Bluff, but what organization are you representing today? Okay, we'll come back to Sarah. Maybe she stepped away.
Sorry, I'm getting Virgil out of the bedroom. Quinn was like,
No
I told him
worries.
to stop.
Sorry to
Sorry.
put you on the spot at the worst time.
That's okay. Sorry, I was just getting Virgil. So projects that represent those values. For us with Bears Ears Partnership, specifically the Education Center. So we are working on educational programming for elementary school students as well as exhibits. So a big thing for us would be getting elementary school students to the Education Center. So however we can get them safely to walk, that saves money on transportation. So that's always nice if they could walk to the Education Center. The same is true for, we do weekly presentations. So that's open to community people as well as visitors. So people can safely walk to the Education Center. That just gets more people involved.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Jared, if you wouldn't mind going next, what type of projects do you think represent the values that you listed above?
From my standpoint, we're always looking for ways to incorporate active transportation and those types of elements into our projects. And I cover the entire southern half of the state, so I'm working on projects all over the place. We recently worked in St. George and are doing a project this summer where we've narrowed the lanes on Sunset Boulevard slightly, and we're going to put in some buffered bike lanes to try and facilitate bike connections in St. George. Another one we just recently got approved. We're looking to do a roundabout near SUU in Cedar City. While that might not sound like active transportation up front, it's actually a pretty big issue for them when they're looking for safety for pedestrians. Roundabouts actually slow traffic down and allow those pedestrians to cross the road with slower traffic and safer connections. So stuff like that. I mean, we're always, like I say, we're always looking for ways to include these elements in projects. Sometimes it's difficult due to funding and other issues, but always looking for ways. I know in Bluff, we've talked over time of how can we work together on some sidewalk projects or other things through the 191 corridor through there to really make the community more walkable and connected. Not sure where we're at on that. I think some more opportunities are coming, and Heidi can probably help us with some of those. But you're also probably aware, and Heidi can elaborate more on this, that UDOT's really ramping up its goal to provide more trail connections throughout the state. And the legislature put some pretty significant funding to that this year. So, we recently hired a new director for that program. So we're all kind of learning and waiting excitedly to see where that goes. Heidi can probably, like I say, provide a little more information on that, but that should give us more opportunities to work with communities on paved trails and other things that will help connect and provide these opportunities.
Awesome. And Jared, can you just, for everyone, just what organization you represent?
Yep, I'm with UDOT.
Heidi, I think Jared set you up to be next. So if you could take
Indeed,
the
yeah,
floor.
I'm also with UDOT. I'm in our planning division, whereas Jared is with Region 4. But I think that the new funding and our trails and transit group that we have at UDOT now really emphasizes our all users perspective and allows us funding to pay for standalone trails projects and to perhaps conduct planning across the state. And to know what community vision is very important. And I think that these types of exercises and workshops are really critical to helping us arrive at the facilities that communities need, and encouraging safe kind of separated trail systems. So I think that the funding that's put in place by the Utah Trail Network is going to be really critical in demonstrating that we want to improve safety. We want to consider all users, including elderly, children, people that are a little more risk averse and don't want to be on-road facilities. So
Thanks, Heidi. I'm just trying to hear you a little bit better. Okay. Elise, would you introduce yourself again and what kind of projects you think represent your values?
Yes, so I'm with Zero Fatalities and Safe Routes Utah, and I do a lot of community outreach, which is mostly education. We have programs for the elementary school kids where we come in and give assemblies on pedestrian safety, and we also do a competition called the Walk and Roll Challenge. So every time somebody rides their bike or scooter or walks to school, they can be put into a giveaway to win a free bike or scooter. And we also have a middle school program, which is a pre-driver program where we prep the kids for getting their permit, but then we also talk about pedestrian safety as well, and how to safely cross and how you just can't rely on cars to stop for you.
Elise, I have a question for you. because our population of students here in Bluff, we have the Bluff Elementary School, and then we also have White Horse High School, which is a little bit outside of the bounds of Bluff, actually. But it would be great to have some kind of connection to the school. I'm wondering, in a lot of these scenarios, it feels like it's not necessarily set up for a rural condition. Most of our students are bused in from the reservation in the morning and back to home in the afternoon. And so I'm wondering how some of these programs are considering the rural aspect or can adjust to the rural condition. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, depending on the areas we go to, because we go all throughout Utah, not just the more populated areas, we tweak our presentations for them specifically. So like maybe the walk and roll, they can't walk to school, but then we'll say if you walk a little bit closer to your bus stop or something like that, we try to change it according to the need of the area and the school, depending on the presenter.
So there is some adaptability
Yeah.
in these programs.
Mhm.
Thanks, Elise. Carly.
I think one of our values, and I love hearing what other people are adding. One of the things that we value is the visitor experience as well as the benefit to, local quality of life. So I think thinking about the, regional connections, like I saw that the draft routes in the Google Earth. I think some of those big regional connections are really, really great. Similar to what the Utah Trails Network will be when that program is rolled out. And then one thing I'll add, and this isn't necessarily related to projects, but one of our values as a division is trying to work with communities, of varying sizes and, really kind of trying to cater our programs to rural Utah and communities that maybe need extra assistance with reduced matches for grants and things like that. So I think considering, matching and leveraging our grants to help with some of these projects might be a good thing to consider down the road.
Awesome. Thanks, Carly. And yeah, you're definitely touching on something that I hope we'll get to a little bit in this which is just kind of some resource and idea sharing. Let's see,
Awesome.
we already
Thanks.
talked with Mac and Jim. I don't know if your eggs are done, if you want to add anything. For background, Jim has been leading, and the Bluff Historical Preservation Association has really been leading efforts to complete our Bluff River Trail. And one of the big ideas and interests from the community is to connect whatever new trails, sidewalks, paths are built to the river walk. So we have kind of this more complete loop that goes through town. So Jim, if you're on and you have anything to add, you're more than welcome.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, the Bluff Historical Preservation Association has taken on the Bluff River Trail as a project for the last probably 8 to 10 years. And it was my passion for the last 30 years, which was to connect the town of Bluff back to the river. The current town that we live in was settled here because there was a river here that gave potential for agriculture. And the process of 100 years of life, the town got separated from the river with private land holdings in between, government things, and really no access. So the river is only accessed by rafting trips, people on boats that travel through. And I wanted to connect people on foot to get to touch that same environment. We now have almost 10 miles of trail. The trail construction is complete. We're working on establishing trailheads and connections to the town, but it runs from Bluff down through several pieces of private property, connects 2 pieces of isolated BLM land, and can make its way all the way to Sand Island Recreation Area, which is about 3 or 4 miles west of us. It has slot canyons, it has riparian areas and great bird watching. There's hunting opportunities for large game and small game, fishing. We have 2 endangered species of fish here and a couple of threatened birds. And so it provides a real access to why the town is even here in the beginning.
So you can, the trail itself right now, here it goes down along the river here, all the way down to Sand Island over here. And we'd like to connect this trail more back into town, into Bluff. And then there's also St. Christopher's Mission over here. And this is a great resource for Navajo Nation. And so being able to have a more paved connection from resources in Bluff to St. Christopher's Mission is also something that our residents have expressed as very important to them.
And I think it's nice too to work loops into those, because our Bluff River Trail, 10 miles long, not many people hike that whole 10 miles. But if you can do a mile or two of a loop and a loop and a loop, that becomes very attractive and gets a lot of people out exercising at whatever level they want to be.
Some other organizations that couldn't be here at this meeting today are the UNHS, and they're very interested in connecting their health programming into more walking and biking paths. So there's a lot of opportunity to connect to these resources even beyond Bluff. And I think that's maybe even just to put on the radar all of these different people who are in the room here. How can we, this first phase is really kind of getting Bluff established as a transportation node and making sure that residents here have safe walking and biking paths. But then we do have a lot of people from the region coming in and using Bluff. And so how can we enhance, UNHS, Utah Navajo Health, in how can we connect with them and help them meet their program values and goals and projects. So there's a lot of partnerships that are possible with a transportation project that we see. And that is one of the things that leads me into my next question, which is what kind of resources are out there that either your groups offer, projects that you might be interested in that you could, I don't know how to put this. Yeah, like what resources are within the power of your organization, and how do you think that they could be applied to a Bluff active transportation plan or a larger regional plan? So that might be a grant, that might be lending support through a point person in your organization. That could be like, hey, I actually already have this project and I think this could be applied in your community. I'd love to know if there are any resources that come to mind that could be shared. And if none come to mind right now, that's okay. But I think the best thing to do in group format is just to call on people. So
Molly, I can throw out from Bluff Historic that
Yeah.
we've got about a $50,000 grant from state recreation that we're using to finish up the trail down here too. It's a great resource, good people to work with.
All right, congratulations, Jim. That's awesome. I'll just go down the line again. Jared, do you think there's any resources that we should know about or that you're uniquely positioned to give more information about?
Yeah, like I say, with this new program, and we're not sure entirely how it's going to work. but yeah, there's going to be a lot more money identified specifically for trails. I think those are primarily going to be for paved trails, kind of the multi-use trails that you saw in the presentation that are wider paved trails that can be used by different levels of riders depending on where they're at, users, walkers, people pushing a stroller. It can be used by all kinds of different folks. But the thought is eventually to connect up communities as well. That's kind of the overall vision, is to get a trail network throughout the state. So, I mean, this would be looking in the future to connect communities. So, bigger, longer trail systems, I would assume paralleling the highways in some areas. I think that this will probably be done a little bit piecemeal. I think it's probably going to be done through an application process where communities can put in applications for funding, put in their what they have in their plans and how this would connect and fit within their plan. So I think this process of getting your plan in place and having an actual active transportation plan showing where the community wants trails, how those will help connect to a larger system. I think that will help the community compete fairly well once this gets moving. And again, I love to punt to Heidi because she probably understands a little bit more how that might work.
Jared, that's really great to know, and I'm sure you're still waiting on that program and how it's going to be rolled out. Is your organization prioritizing? How are they prioritizing where to kind of start with this regional trail network?
Like I say, my guess is it's going to be done a little bit piecemeal through an application process. And so communities, counties, cities would put in for funding to do trail projects. And, it starts with the plan. If the communities have a good plan and they show good connections, they show connections to schools, to larger trail networks, first and last mile connections to kind of connect things up. I really think it's going to be showing that the project provides a good overall value and good connections for communities. That's my guess. Like I say, I'm kind of maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but that would be my guess as to how that's going to work.
Thanks, Jared. That we're definitely going to be knocking on your door more than we already are. Heidi, if you could, we'll just go next with you. Any thoughts about what Jared said or ideas about resources?
Yeah, Jared's correct. Kind of what will be funded, what's prioritized, how will be prioritized, how will be selected, is kind of yet unknown and will kind of come into focus in the coming months. But we do kind of anticipate projects needing to be identified on a formal or adopted active transportation plan in order to kind of get teed up for that funding source. Separate from the Utah Trail Network funding, we do have funding opportunities
Sorry,
through
Heidi,
TIF
sorry, can I interrupt
Active.
for a minute? It's a little hard to hear yet. There's a lot of background noise. Do you mind speaking up a little bit?
Yeah. Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I can maybe take my headset
I'll
off.
try
and
to
maybe
increase the volume a little. All right, thanks. Go ahead, Heidi.
Is this a little bit better? I can maybe shout
Yeah,
into
that's
my
that's
microphone.
better.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, so we anticipate projects needing to be identified on an active transportation plan to be teed up for that funding source. Currently, until that avenue for funding is more solidified, projects can be submitted as part of TIF Active, and that requires a 40% local match, and we anticipate a 5% local match with the Utah Trail Network projects. But again, we don't have kind of a clear picture of how to get projects in there yet and what projects and whatnot. But TIF Active is any active transportation project. It's not isolated to trails, and again, has to be identified on a plan. So those are really solid funding sources, to pursue and think about now.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Heidi. Let's see, Elise, if you wouldn't mind going next.
So we have with Safe Routes Utah, if the school sends in their map, I can send the link to this. There's grants available to be used.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah,
But
and that's specifically for schools to apply?
um, to be honest, I'm still quite new,
Okay,
and
no
so I'm
problem.
still learning. But I'll add the link to the document.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I can speak on those a little bit. It's called the Safe Route to School program, and that's also a competitive program. It's a federal program, and so the federal group gives us so much money to put towards improving routes to schools. And these are typically sidewalk type projects to connect existing sidewalks to schools or to provide new connections if needed. Like Elise says, it has to be kind of based on the school routing program that shows where students are walking to and from.
Okay,
Having information on how many students would actually use the route is important in those applications. And so, yeah, Elise can probably send you the link to, it looks like she did already. So, but yeah, those applications come through UDOT. I sit on that committee that actually selects those projects.
okay. And are those projects, would that, maybe Heidi, would we be able to use something like that for a match? If our trail were to be connected to the school?
Yeah, you have to be able to use non-state dollars for the match.
Okay.
That's the only other requirement.
Okay. Mac, is there any, while you're talking, is there anything else that you can think of?
No, we usually go to UDOT for our funding
Okay.
on things. County doesn't have anything. Ours is more efforts on there. The wayfinding signage has already been funded. Things like that, but not a lot of resources on our end, other than what already comes from the state.
Okay. So also, I assume that you're kind of an approval body, and so do you help support projects, make recommendations?
Yes,
Okay.
and we're kind of along those efforts. I mean, with Jared, is we're working with them on that regional connection of trails, things like that, as we're trying to push for the funding from the state legislator to get more of that active transportation and multimodal transportation. So yeah, ours is more communication and trying to connect the dots.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Sarah, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I mean, overall, as an organization, we're supportive. We don't have funding, but we're, potentially could partner to work towards funding. We can mobilize volunteers, so if there's places that we could use additional labor or something like that, we'd be happy to help with that kind of stuff.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. So the next part of this workshop is mapping.
So I didn't get to go for the
Oh.
resources. I just wanted to add
Sure,
one
sure.
thing. This is Carly with the Division of Outdoor Rec, and I just wanted to say that, Heidi mentioned that state grants can't be used as match, but our UWard grant is kind of an exception. I think perhaps Heidi was mentioning other UDOT state grants, but I know we've worked out somewhere in our kind of the code that provides the framework for what our grants are able to do. so that we can be used as match for some of those bigger UDOT dollars. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was that we have a federal grant called the RTP, which is the Recreational Trails Program. And it has a motorized component and a non-motorized component. And our motorized grant is not very popular because we have a bigger non-federal motorized grant. So long story short, if, e-bikes are considered motorized through the lens of the Federal Highway Administration, which is where that RTP money comes from. So anyways, I just wanted to say that those motorized RTP dollars they're there and it's not very competitive to get them. So it is a federal grant, which can have, added strings attached, but just wanted to bring that up.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Carly, for making sure that got covered. So for the mapping part of this, let me see, there's I have to reshare. One second. So let's see. Be presenting this QR code. So if you want to scan this code, this is a link to a survey, which also has our different maps in it. And one kind of exercise that people are engaging in behind us are writing on the map, highlighting or drawing where they'd like to see different types of connections and trails. So you're welcome to use this map and send it back to us. We'd love to see kind of some ideas that you think would be well-funded or you think would be good connections, or if there's connections we haven't thought about that you'd like to add or give us feedback on. We'd love to see different ideas that you might have or projects that you think would match the type of programming that you offer. We'd be really appreciated if you take the survey and maybe contribute some route ideas on the map. So I can leave that up for a minute here. And I also just like to leave space if people want to have a conversation or bring in any ideas about what you've heard about today or questions that you have for each other. Now's kind of the time for open discussion.
Hi, Mac. This is Jim down in Bluff.
Hey, Jim.
We've got this incredible project going on below us down here. And I really love your county weed guys coming down. They've helped us so much along the river trail. And I mean, goat heads are my passion, and some of Bluff guys too.
Yeah.
You can keep that weed thing going on. We'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem. I know they are a menace right there, and so they always have been. They're evil. There's not a lot of areas here in San Juan County with goat heads, but Bluff is one of them that have them.
They love us down here. They like rubber tires, rubber soles on your feet, rubber tires to the laundromat, but we fight them like crazy.
They are evil.
Awesome. Great. I don't want to keep people on longer than needed, but I'm available. We'll send out just a follow-up email to everybody who attended, and there's a lot here to follow up on. So thanks for joining, and if you want to stick around and you have some questions, feel free, and otherwise, thank you for joining.
Thank you, guys. Got to go to another meeting. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Mac.
Thanks, Mac.
Appreciate it. Good seeing you, Jim.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Carly.
Debbie, do you have anything to throw in that I've missed?
Okay, can you hear me? You can, okay. I would like to thank them for the excellent job they did in presenting the Black River Trail. But I would just like to add a little more backstory. The Bluff City Historical Preservation Association started producing and printing a series of paper brochures about um, about taking walks and bicycle rides through the Bluff Historic District. It also the existing streets and roads. Other brochures describe things such as architectural style, the history of the people who built the houses, and the growth of the historic village of Bluff. So we are very much into connecting people with places through educational materials. So the Blood River Trail is a logical extension of what we have been doing since we first formed. So, secondly, we do not have much of an internet presence, but we are working on constructing a website that will have information about the Historic Preservation Association on the Black River Trail. And we hope to get this up and running sometime later this year. Thank you. Okay,
That's good. Thanks, Debbie.
okay.
So thanks for joining. If there's anything that we kind of did a values exercise talking about what your organization values and what kind of projects that might be related to. Happy to hear your thoughts on that, or if you're planning on joining later today or want to email me, then you can do that too.
Molly, Molly,
Yes.
be sure and go back and on the Facebook and see what Debbie threw into the conversation. That was really good stuff. I just blew off.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to include that in our notes and conversation for Chris. Okay, well, otherwise, I'm going to close the online portion of this meeting, and thank you, everyone, for, I see we have a couple more phone numbers that joined if you want to introduce yourselves. I think I see a 435 number, but it's hard to hear you.
Hello, this is Mark Maryboy.
Oh,
Sorry, who is it?
Mark Maryboy.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. Who am I speaking to?
This is Molly. I'm a resident of Bluff and architectural designer, and I'm helping facilitate this active transportation meeting.
hi, Mark.
Okay.
Hi, Mark. This is Jim Hook. I'm on here too.
Hey, Jimmy, it's good to hear your voice.
Me too.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to the conversation about active transportation, Mark?
I was listening. I've been listening to the conversation on my wife's phone,
Yes.
and I thought the subject was very interesting. As you know, I was a former Navajo Nation Council and County Commissioner. Since 2006, I've been running my own business. I have all kinds of stuff that I'm doing. I partner with several companies in doing my business. And I thought that this issue of the trail network is a great project, and just let me know if you guys need any help or any support on the project. I'm very interested. I would be open to working on the footbridge and getting that reestablished right east of Bluff Mission, and any economic development in San Juan County, I support. That's basically my introduction statement at this point.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. I had a little trouble hearing because I was far away, but we did get your comments recorded, and I'll make sure to listen to those again.
Very good.
Thank you for attending and participating.
Sure.
I also see that we have Ryan Benali who logged in. Ryan, did you want to introduce yourself or add anything to the conversation?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, Mark, if you
so-
wouldn't mind muting yourself. Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. Hello again. My name is Brian Bednali. I'm with the USU Extension Office there in Monticello, and I've heard about the the project through the county's Economic Development Office with Elaine Gisler.
Yeah.
But I hopefully through our office, and I'm new to the position here at USU Extension, so with my experience and the ability of what the office probably has to provide in terms of resources and knowledge, I hope that we could be a good partner in the program.
Awesome. Thanks for introducing yourself, Ryan. Does USU have any plans for active transportation or upcoming projects that you think would be a good match for partnering with Bluff to make happen?
I'm also joined here with my counterpart, Reagan, if you can see her. Reagan, if you could take that answer.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Molly, I think the last time we talked, it was kind of just seeing to explore the possibilities of what our collaboration might be or what kind of support might come in. So I think between Ryan and I, we're fairly open to ideas. Ryan can chime in a little bit more on his availability, but I'm definitely interested in potentially youth programs and exploring the possibility of having that bike path be something that even youth in our community might be able to have access to. So anything that we can look for on grants or the possibility of programs that would come through our office, we would be open to.
Awesome. Thanks, Reagan. I know you do a lot of projects with youth with 4-H, and I think there's a lot of different ways we could engage to really make use of active transportation paths and programming.
Yeah, we also have what we call Create Better Health coordinators or ambassadors. So they help run programs for healthy living, healthy food and nutrition. And so that pathway might be, a great form of extracurricular exercise in the outdoor environment. And, if there's program that we could set up and foundation based that we can help support and come in. That's what our office is here for.
Awesome. Thanks, Reagan. It's good to have you on the call. Let's see. It looks like you still have Mark on the call. Mark, did you want to give any other comments?
I just want to say that I just recently partnered with a company called ACES Delta. We're working on hydrogen energy, And one of the provision in the funding from U.S. Department of Energy is supporting Native American economic development. So I would like to have a further discussion with whoever the contact person is here on the call. My email address is mmaryboy@navancio, NAVANCIO.com. That's my email address.
Okay. Yes.
And my phone number is 435-630-7488.
Thanks for offering to be available, Mark. We'll definitely contact you and have another bigger conversation.
Very good.
Thanks for joining. So it looks like we still have Reagan and Ryan and Jim and Mark on the call. And I'm going to be here just available if anyone new joins the call. But if there's nothing else that you want to add, we did have some participation in earlier part of the call. And those folks had to jump off. So if you'd like to add anything else, please raise your hand. Otherwise, thanks for joining.
Molly, so Ryan and our office kind of came in last minute, I think I came in right at the end of your presentation and
Sure.
Ryan joined on during the comments and questions period. So if there's anything else that you have to share or anything, we're happy to look at that or even meet at another time.
Sure.
If there's anything else that you guys feel we can contribute to.
Great. Well, I'm not sure if you were on when I put up this QR code, but there's a survey to fill out and some maps that if you want to add any connections that you'd like us to include in our active transportation plan, then you can do that.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, Reagan. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Molly, can I also throw out for Reagan and maybe Ryan that this is also recorded on the YouTube channel for town too. You can come back and find all this stuff later.
Yeah, we'll be posting this afterwards, after the workshops.
Great. Thank you, Jim and Molly.
All right. Thanks, Reagan. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jim and Molly.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ryan. Okay. Stop sharing.
Good work.
Okay. Jim, thanks for always showing up.
Well, it was awesome, Molly. I can't believe you pulled it off that way.
Oh.
It was good stuff here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun to hear all the chatter in the background. I'm just going
I
to
see.
keep. Oh, go ahead.
I see that in the other stuff too. I'm glad that Craig was there to film all of this too. It looks really good.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jim. The production value is good. Thanks, Greg. I'm going to keep this Google Meet open in case anyone else joins the call, but I might just go step aside and talk to some folks. So thanks for showing up, Jim, and I'll just keep this open if anyone else shows up. All right.